Hi Sudarshan, welcome to the MBA Decoder Know Your B School series. To get started, can you please give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Thanks, Namita. Happy to be here. My name is Sudarshan Tirumala. I go by Suds. Uh, I am a graduate of the class of 2010 from the Tuck School of Business. I've been working in India in the private equity sector ever since graduation. Prior to the MBA, I was in the venture capital area in the US. And so I'm basically working in the emerging markets in private equity, and alongside my professional commitment, I also run Tuck's machinery in India as the key country representative for Tuck in India and Southeast Asia. I am the head of the Tuck Club of India, and as a result, I organize a lot of events surrounding alumni get-togethers. And at the same time, I organize events that bring Tuck to the prospective applicants in India, as well as the prospective applicants to get to know about Tuck. So that, in a nutshell, is what I do for Tuck.
Okay, that sounds very good. And so let's get on with the questions. So,
Sure.
1 second. Okay, Tuck is known as a general management school. What would you say for students who are interested in particular specializations? How can they customize their MBA experience?
See, there's just literally you can count them on the fingertips. Schools that offer a pure general management degree, and Tuck happens to be one of them. By general management, it's in cricketing parlance, I guess it is like an all-rounder versus being a fielder or a bowler or a batsman type of an a specific nature. So you get to know a lot more about a lot of things in how to run a business from a variety of perspectives and a variety of functions. And obviously, students who are interested in specific areas of an aspect of running a business can certainly dive as deep as they want in that particular niche. So there are students who are traditionally they go into strategy consulting or management consulting. There are students who go into investment banking. There are students who go into corporate finance. There are students who go into sales and marketing. They go into pure general management in a manufacturing setup. In as product managers in tech companies like say Amazon or Microsoft or Apple or what have you. And certainly private equity and venture capital is also a very sought after and a very a lot of Tuck graduates end up getting into careers in this sector as well. So it's whatever you make of it. It's obviously you can tailor your focus, and you can really either deep dive, or you can say I want to know everything, because ultimately I want to be running a company myself or running a business unit of a large company, and I need to know enough about a lot of things so that I can do a good job at it, and people certainly do that as well. So it's ultimately it's what the student makes of what they
Of
want
their
to
education, yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, now Tuck is also known for using the case method. To what extent is it used in the classroom? I don't think it's like Darden or Howard, where the teaching is primarily through the case.
It's a combination of case and lecture. There are cases that are written by Tuck professors. There's obviously cases written by the HBS professors. cases written by case Western professors, and of course lectures and a lot of visitors from top-notch companies in the world visiting Tuck and speaking to students about a particular topic in whichever course they happen to be speaking to. So there's a number of and there are other ways of instruction in the courses. There are certain courses which are called which are unique to Tuck. It's called the research to practice seminar. So there are these are areas where a set of students, such a like a set of 15 students at a very small class, have one-on-one conversations every week, or twice a week, with a professor who is researching a specific subject. So, for instance, if somebody wants to understand in extreme detail what actually led to the credit crisis in the U.S. or which ultimately percolated around the world.
Mm-hmm.
There is a seminar, a research to practice seminar on the credit crisis that they can literally go into the nitty-gritty details of how things happened over the course of the entire quarter. And there it's not so much of a case method, but it's actually reading a lot of literature, reading a lot of journals, and of course debating with the professor to understand and ultimately come up with a detailed understanding of what led to whatever it is the subject that they're exploring.
Mm-hmm.
There are courses where if for instance there is a student is interested in let's say a subject which is not necessarily taught in a business school, or even if it is taught in a business school, there are certain depth to which the student wants to go. He or she can take up what is called the independent study. So the student actually goes in and with advice from a couple of professors at Tuck,
Right.
essentially becomes the expert in that course. So there is case method is one of the methods of instruction. It's not the only method of instruction.
Okay.
There's lectures, there's seminars, there are visitors, there are these independent studies, all of which ultimately they contribute towards learning in the MBA program at Tuck.
Okay, so that sounds good, but Sudarshan, talking about independent study actually, brings me to you. I think you did an independent study, and it was a very extensive one, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so would you like to tell us a little about that?
See, of course, it's specific to the individual. In my case, I wanted to be in private equity in the emerging markets, which is what I'm doing now. And up until then, my entire experience has been U.S. based. So I wanted to get up to speed on what is happening emerging markets from a private equity point of view, and so while there is enough courses at Tuck about private equity in general, and venture capital and so on and so forth, there wasn't something that I could really understand specifically about what is happening in, say, emerging markets such as India. Independent study was all about researching and understanding and creating a essentially a report on what is happening in private equity in India, the landscape in India. And when I say the landscape, it is not only in terms of the general partners who are actually the private equity or venture capital investors in India, but also the limited partners, the investors who invest in these general partners, and their perspective. So over the course of the quarter, I probably ended up interviewing one-on-one at least 30 odd GPs and LPs that have an exposure in India, and I think that was probably one of the best ways for me to understand what is happening on the ground and you know get a ringside view of how the sector is evolving in India.
Okay, that's quite nice to know that students can get to such depths to study a subject.
Absolutely. In fact, there's one of my friends who was interested in everything to do with batteries, right? And the next generation batteries.
Mm-hmm.
And so he basically did his independent study after independent. You can take, I mean, he took an independent study a quarter and then, uh, dove deeper into the subject the next quarter and so on. And he essentially became a top-notch expert in, in the field of batteries by the time he graduated. And that's
Okay,
what he wanted.
that's very nice. So we'll move on to the next question. You were also talking about emerging markets. So, there's this, every B school has a component of the international trip. So what do you think about it, and what advice would you give to Indian applicants about how important these trips are?
When you say international trip, are you referring to going on an international trip while in the MBA or going on an international trip before the MBA? Uh, what exactly are you referring to?
Okay, as part of the MBA curriculum. So, so
See,
like,
at
doing a
Tuck,
consulting project.
sure, sure. So at Tuck, global mindset is a prerequisite for graduation. Okay. So students are expected to have an international angle in whatever it is that they're pursuing, as part of the MBA program. So there are a number of ways in which the school facilitates this kind of developing of the global mindset in the student. There are, there is, first of all, for the first opportunity I think students will get is in what is called the first year project, which is a capstone project that is taken up by students in the spring quarter of the first year. And there, there's opportunity for students to work with companies in far-flung regions of the world, whether it is Africa, Asia, or South America, or whatever else, wherever else in the world, or Eastern Europe, it doesn't matter. But use the opportunity of the first year project to work with companies that are facing certain challenges, and help them get over those challenges over the course of this spring quarter in the first year. And ultimately the students end up giving a presentation to the management of the company alongside the professors at Tuck. So they get evaluated on the quality of the output and how they've solved the issues on hand for the company. So that's one angle of international exposure. Another quite a famous way, or one of the more well-known ways to get this international exposure, or the global mindset at Tuck, is through the Tuck Global Consultancy. It's a project that is it's a real project. You are working with real companies, similar to what you have done in first year project, but the TGC is a lot more has a lot more riding for it on the company's end. So the company actually spends X number of dollars, whether it is $50,000 or $100,000, flying the students to a specific location in the world, and having those students work on a challenge that the company is facing in that part of the world. And so for 3 weeks, the students are actually on the ground working with the company on whatever the challenge it is that they're trying to solve. And then they go back at the end of those 3 weeks and basically synthesize the work that they've done, the recommendations, and over the remainder of the quarter, they have a lot of back and forth interactions with the company, leading up to a final recommendation and a final presentation that they give to the management of the company. And we are talking the top of various companies.
Okay, that's
And
a
so it's a way for students to really get into uh, you know how do how do companies get benefited through a real consulting type of project.
okay.
Is sorry.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. So I guess that the students can also select the kind of projects that they want to work for. So for instance, probably if somebody has a marketing background, he could get into a project which has a marketing problem to solve or an
I mean,
operations
it
problem.
depends on it depends on the interest of the student. Certainly, if the student's interest is taken into consideration, it also is a function of what kind of projects are available.
Right.
So, for instance, when I did the top global consult, when I was a student, I was, I was working on a project for one of the largest retailers in the world, who was trying to crack into the Indian market and trying to understand how do you use the burgeoning mobile technology in India to drive its business strategy in India.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are some really amazing projects that students get exposed to, and you and the listeners of this audio clip should certainly check out the pagalguy.com postings from tuck.dartmouth. There are some really interesting posts there about the most complex things that students have done as part of the Tuck Global Consultancy in in countries like Rwanda in Western Africa, and solving some real world issues. There are there are students that have gone to Nicaragua and Peru and Chile and certainly India, the Far East, Eastern Europe, Poland, etc. All over the world, solving real problems for real companies, where the companies are literally spending the money to fly the students in and out, and accommodation and all of that. So there's some real stakes in these kinds of projects.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other kind of the global mindset aspect is through learning expeditions. So the Tuck Center for Global Business and Government, which previously was called the Center for International Business, they organize treks for students in various parts of the world, where a group of students goes and interacts from, for example, a group of students go to Japan and interact with everyone from the policymakers and the government, and they end up meeting with Shinzo Abe, or the top people in the government of Japan, and also meet with the top business leaders such as at Toyota or Sony or Mitsubishi or whatever, and then get a complete a cultural view of the country over a couple of weeks time frame. So they just spend that time on the ground, understanding what drives the economy of the country from the ground up all the way to the policymakers. So there's any number of ways that students can develop these international, the global mindset, as they say, and it's actually a prerequisite for graduating from Tuck.
Okay, that's very nice. Okay, Tuck is located in a small town, and it's the only program on campus. So, do you feel there are any pros and cons to it? And the following question also is that because of its small town location, is there anything about any pros or cons regarding the employer reach?
I can say only pros, because I have never actually heard of a con in this aspect. And I don't say that just because I'm a Tuck alum. I'm saying that as somebody who's got friends in other top business schools around the world, and we exchange notes, and it's just first of all, it's one of the most idyllic locations for any business school up in the the upper New England, right next to the Connecticut River. It's extremely outdoorsy. And in terms of the program being only an MBA, the professors at Tuck are, basically everybody teaches in the MBA program. There is no professor that is only doing research, unlike some of the other schools which have a research focus and not so much as a teaching focus.
Mm-hmm.
So the top-notch researchers and the top-notch thought leaders in the world who are faculty at Tuck are teaching the students, and you speak to you are interacting on a daily basis with people like Vijay Govindrajan, who is I think number 3 on the Thinkers 50, or the in terms of the number 3 in the management gurus list of the world. And he's someone who is interacting with people like Jeff Immelt of the GE. He's talking to the Birlas, the Tatas in India. He's talking to the Toyotas of the world, the top CEOs around the world. And not only that, he's actually teaching in the in the MBA program. And so when he's speaking, you just get into a totally different understanding of what exactly is happening around the world in these corporations, and things that he is doing. So the chief chief innovation researcher or chief innovation officer. I'm sorry, the title skips me. But chief innovation consultant, that's what he was.
Mm-hmm.
So he was working directly with Jeff Immelt as part of trying to figure out how GE can actually do things differently and not a one-size-fits-all solution for its products around the world. So out of the thought process came this idea of reverse innovation, where they're, GE is now basically building products for India in India. And these are, GE Healthcare, for instance, has, portable X-ray machines and portable ECG machines and, various types of machines that they have built to be able to move into villages, the small villages in India.
Mm-hmm.
So taking healthcare to people in, remote parts. And what they've also realized is, as a result of that, they're able to just take these and go anywhere in the world. And so they're using these products that they developed for India, in India, very mobile type of technologies, are now, being used in the developed countries like US and UK. And so that is a very powerful way to look at, not a top-down approach of, we manufacture in US, and whether it is useful or useless in anywhere else in the world, we will send it out there. Versus, they're building products here that cater to the real needy people, and then these products are actually being used to solve health issues elsewhere in the developed markets. So that was the idea that he propounded while he was, this chief innovation consultant at GE, and he literally teaches how he's done that, and the outcomes of it as part of his course in MBA program. And Jeff actually comes and he addresses the students and so on. So it's a very powerful way of knowing from the top-notch researchers, and VG is just one example. There's Sidney Pinkelstein, who teaches again in the MBA program, and he's sought after by the top companies in terms of their executive management and leadership development.
Mm-hmm.
There is Marshall Goldsmith, who is the top of the top executive coaches in the world, and he is part of the MBA program.
Okay.
Praveen Kopale is in the marketing program. Kevin Keller. I mean, these are names. Ken French, based on after whom the French pharma model is named. These are the guys who are teaching at Tuck while also doing the research, and it's just a I mean, I'm probably not answering the question that you asked, but I just thought I'll give you a little bit of flavor for how uh, you know the having the pure focus on the MBA program enables students to get into get in personal contact with all these top-notch thought leaders and really get to know them one-on-one, while also learning about things that are happening in the things that they are thinking about on a daily basis. Apart from that, if you think of Tuck is a fairly small class across business schools, certainly in the Ivy Leagues. There's
Right.
about 270 odd students, and you know, and one of the questions that I'm frequently asked, and I think you're alluding to this as part of your question, is how does it matter in terms of employer reach, because it's kind of a 2-hour drive from Boston.
Right.
And if you think of it, there are about 280 or 270, 280 students in the program, and about 900 companies come to recruit on campus. Why do they do that? It's of talent that is coming out of this place in Hanover, New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes,
and
I totally relate to that
and
now after all that you've told me.
and not only that, these are recruiters who are coming in. And if you think of some of the other larger cities, let's say New York or Chicago or Boston or whatever, the recruiters typically come, they do their interviews, and they just go back to their to work, or their office or whatever in the branch of their office in that city to continue their work. In Hanover, they are there. They come there just because they want to meet with the students, and that's it. They don't have any other engagements that they have planned. So literally for a day, or maybe mostly 2 days, they are right there and interacting with students on a one-on-one basis, getting to know the students and getting the students to know the companies. And at the end of the day, the students are actually having dinner with these guys who are coming to recruit, getting to know. So there's a very, very personal touch that I don't think any other school can provide, simply because of the location, and that's a huge advantage to Tuck students.
Okay, that's
So in terms of employer reach, certainly I count it as a great plus, and certainly no cons at all, because all of the top companies recruit at Tuck. Whether it's it doesn't matter which sector you're looking at, whether it's consulting, banking, general management, take your pick. Odds are that companies recruits at Tuck, and the fact that they come there, they spend the time that it took to first of all make the trip to Hanover, and once they come, they end up spending a couple of days right there interacting with the students. I think there's nothing short of an amazing experience right there.
okay. So just a follow-up question to that, the employer reach. So if a company does not come down on campus, do the students actually would the students go and meet them? This could be, something related
Absolutely,
to the career treks.
absolutely. So some of the students will say, I want to be in Silicon Valley. I just want to be in a startup, or I just want to be in the San Francisco area. And there are student organized treks where students actually go and meet these. They have this entire schedule lined up for a week or a few days, and they go and meet and interact with various companies in whichever area, whether whether it is the venture capital portfolio companies in Boston or Silicon Valley, or whatever, whichever area you want to, from a startup point of view, whether it's, you want to go to Seattle to be, looking at the entrepreneurial activity there, or the tech companies that are coming up there all along the West Coast. students go all the time, and in actually groups. As, some students are more enterprising. They just say, I want to just go and figure it out. And so there's a lot more homework that they'll have to do in terms of setting up their appointments and all that. But there's all kinds of opportunities for students to pursue whatever it is that they want to pursue, and the school puts all of its resources at at their disposal to make whatever it is that they're wanting to make happen.
Right. Again, moving on to the applicants, what kind of qualities does Tuck look for in applicants?
Well, they have to be leaders. Uh, they have to have a, they have to be collaborative. That's a very important aspect of the Tuck MBA. Students actually help each other and work with each other. It's a very tight-knit community, and 280 people within the first 2 months of coming into the school, you probably end up knowing about 90% of your classmates, and those bonds only build stronger and stronger every day for the next 2 years. And so they want students who are who really have a leadership mindset, are collaborative, are able to are able to go the extra mile and not expect things to be handed to them on a platter. They're people who are really personable. So it's basically an all-round, a well-rounded individual who is able to not simply come there purely to develop a career, which is of course most that's what people come to do an MBA for, but also contribute to the community and actually get. It's not a place for somebody who wants to be anonymous. That I think that in a nutshell puts it. So people have to be involved in a lot of activities on campus, not simply focused on academics all the time, although that also happens by default. But there's so many activities, and there's so much energy, and there's so many things happening on a daily basis that people who just want to get their thing done and move and go back to their rooms, that's not the kind of that's thing for Tuck. So in some sense, it's a very self-selective school. People of a certain caliber, can fit and can actually have a lot of fun in those 2 years while making a difference for themselves as well as for the school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's certainly, like I mentioned earlier, it's very easy to go outdoors and explore the hills and the valleys, and in winter there is ice hockey or skiing or whatever. I mean, people just have to have this intent to do some things differently, explore, push themselves, and have a lot of fun doing those things. That's the kind of candidate that will really flourish at Tuck.
Okay, that's very nice. I wish I could do the ice hockey too. So
People actually come in not knowing what is ice hockey, and they really have a lot of fun learning by holding the ropes and actually then winning games. So there's a lot of that happens at Tuck for sure.
yeah. So any tips for the Indian applicants about how they should be approaching the application? I think you covered a large part in your previous answer, but anything specific here?
I think people just get hung up on the deadlines, and there's this misconception that if you for rightly or wrongly, they just assume that if you're applying in the first round, whether you have to apply in the first round or you will not get through just because of some preconceived notions. And I don't think that's true at all. There, the second round is actually the largest round of applications at Tuck, believe it or
Right.
not. And uh, so the one advice that I would give applicants is, don't get hung up on some artificial deadlines. Make sure that you are first of all happy with the application that you're trying to put together. Because if you try to cut corners or try to just push things just to get through a deadline that's coming up, it's probably going to be counterproductive. I'd rather the applicant take time to understand themselves, to be genuine about what they're talking about, and really bring themselves out in the application very clearly, so that the admissions committee can tell whether this is some. Most people make the mistake of writing what they think the admissions committee would like to hear, and that I would strongly suggest against, because it really comes through if you're making up something that you don't believe in, or you don't really not only believe in, which is not simply you. So be genuine about whatever it is that you're trying to do, what you have done, what you plan to do, and how you plan to go about it, and just put it all out there. Make sure, first of all, you are your own best critic. You know what you have done at the end of the essay writing process and preparing the application. You know whether it is good enough or not. And if you are not happy, and if the deadline is passing, that's okay. Take your time and make sure that you're happy with the output before you apply, because that makes a lot of difference ultimately.
Right. Actually, Indians are not just obsessed with the round one deadline. There is another obsession. It's called the GMAT.
Yeah, I mean, GMAT, the way I look at it, GMAT is an enabler. It's not, something that, there's no cutoff or something, and, there are students who come to Tuck with a 600 GMAT, and there are students who come to Tuck with, a 780, 790 GMAT. There are students there are applicants who have an 800 GMAT who get rejected at Tuck. So it really is, it's, I would liken it to a jigsaw puzzle, right? So, the GMAT is one part of the puzzle. There's your recommendations, there's your essays, your extracurricular activities, your academics, your your professional experience. All of these parts of these are all parts of the jigsaw puzzle that ultimately will have to fit together pretty well to form this, a nice picture of who the candidate is. And so, if GMAT isn't, if for whatever reason the student has got a little less in GMAT and they think, they've had an off day and they want to take it again, by all means they should. But by no means, just because you have an 800 doesn't mean you get into Tuck. And just because somebody happens to have a 600 doesn't mean they're automatically rejected.
Okay, so
It's
that would that also apply to the Indian applicants? So should we say that the 700 cutoff is not really there? It's just in the mind for the Indian applicants.
See, there are classmates of mine who got into Tuck with 670, 680. So so I don't even I don't even think it's reasonable to say that there's this cutoff of 700, because there were classmates of mine who got in certainly without 700, right?
Okay.
And I'm talking about Indian students. I'm not talking about any other nationality.
Good. I think that's very encouraging for a lot of applicants, because they would just not think about applying to Tuck because of their low GMAT scores.
Well, and again, it goes back to what I just said about, are you happy with what you have put out there? And if ultimately the hesitation will come through, whether it is, if you're defensive in your application, it comes through. And so if higher GMAT score is what is going to make you less defensive, then I think, it behooves that the student goes and takes it again just to make themselves feel better. Because, maybe maybe that's the way to really make them put their best foot forward. Otherwise, they're always having this thought at the back of their mind that, oh my God, I got a 680 or 690. And somehow that percolates into how they write their essays. Instead, if getting a 720 or 730 or whatever is going to make them put their best foot forward, I think they should. But ultimately, it boils down to, I think the director of admissions at Tuck, Donna Clark, puts it best. If she were to just go by GMAT scores and give admissions, the whole class would be full of Indian students. But of course, that's not, and she really says this. So certainly that is not the only way to look, why a candidate is admitted. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Just because somebody has an 800 doesn't mean they get in, because there's a lot more riding on the application than just the GMAT score. And, so there are students from all kinds of backgrounds. There are students who have never been in a quantitative background, and so they don't do so well in the quantitative aspect of GMAT. But then, they've tried to address that by taking certain quantitative type of courses, which hopefully will stand them in good stead over, during the MBA and beyond. So there's any number of ways to showcase your commitment to the Tuck MBA, to showcase that, you are somebody who is going to take that extra step to make things happen. And, I don't think anybody should think of GMAT as a cutoff. It's more an enabler.
Right.
I mean, of course, having said that, higher the better, obviously, because, if you're talking about, if you have this thing that, okay, somebody with a 760 has applied and I have only 730, well, where does it stop?
Mm-hmm.
So it's, is 730 too less? I don't think so, but somebody might feel it is less compared to a 760.
Right. I think there are applicants who want to retake at a 730. So, anyways, let's move on, and I'll just come to the next slide, which talks about collaboration. So, Tuck is known for collaboration, and I've also read about a very open relationship of students with professors, where professors keep inviting students over for lunches and dinners, etc. So maybe you could talk about that, and also talk about how applicants can demonstrate their collaborative sides in the application.
See, I mean, I think I've already somewhat
covered it.
Mentioned this in my earlier remarks. But Tuck is collaborative, period. Okay, there's no one-upmanship. And when I say collaboration, if there are instances, and this is more the norm than the exception. There are instances where students actually help each other in the interviews, even though they're all looking at the same company and the same position. They don't mind sharing their thoughts on certain things that are being discussed, or their idea of how to answer a certain question or whatever. They very openly discuss it, and that's what makes Tucky stand apart when you look at from a recruiter's perspective. I think Wall Street Journal runs this survey from a recruiter point of view of of recruits that ranking schools based on from a recruiter feedback point of view, and Tuck stands head and shoulders above the rest, and that's because the recruiters rank Tuck graduates and Tuckies as very high on leadership, very high on teamwork, very high on being collaborative, going the extra mile to help out the others, to being well-rounded, being very dedicated, being very humble, and not just pushing their weight around. In general, being a good human being, and that that is literally what Tuck stands for. And those are the kind of candidates who really have a great time at Tuck, because like I said, it's not a place for people who would like to be anonymous. In terms of how do applicants demonstrate their collaborative sides, you said. Many applicants ask me, I've not really managed anybody in a company. I'm not a team manager. I'm a team member, and so how do I show that I'm a leader, or how do I show that I collaborate? Well, you don't have. My answer to that is, it's fine if you have not led people in the past, but how do your team members look at you, and how does your that comes through in the recommendation, right? If the recommender can speak authoritatively about this candidate being well respected, well rounded, and really a team player in his or her work, that speaks a lot to the admissions committee. It's not somebody, somebody doesn't have to always have a managerial experience leading 10 or 100 people. That doesn't really mean much ultimately if they are not good team players, right? So yeah, and some other people say, I've been in a professionally, I've not really been in a managerial role, but by the way, I've done this this non-profit, or a more of a social enterprise, which helps certain sections of the society, and I've done this with my friends, come together. That's a perfectly valid way of collaboration. It's just simply not something that comes in your professional work, but it's certainly something that is outside of the work, on a day-to-day basis. It's something that you're passionate about, and that you are working on and making a difference in the society. That certainly matters, and those are all valid leadership experiences that candidates can speak to in their essays.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we were also talking about volunteering, but certain people, because of their professions, like it could be the financial services or an operations job, who do not have the time to volunteer. How is their application viewed?
Well, it's not about how the application is viewed. It's about what kind of a leader are you. I think that's the question that the candidate will have to answer for himself or herself, right? I mean, if somebody is somebody can be super successful at work, and that's fine, and they might not have had enough opportunity to do any volunteer type of work, but most companies have a certain corporate social responsibility type of initiatives. Will have the person directly or indirectly being part of those kinds of initiatives. It's certainly still part of work, but it's outside of the scope of their professional responsibilities. So it's things like that, I think are worth highlighting if somebody has that kind of experience. And extracurriculars, I mean, people could be athletes, people can be part of, they can be, marathon runners. They could have participated in marathon, or Boston or Bombay, or Bangalore or whatever. And those are all extracurricular activities that show that there is something more to this person than simply sitting at a desk and typing away for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, for the Indian applicants who largely come from an IT or a finance background, what kind of opportunities can they seek at Tuck?
I think any opportunity that they feel is right for them. I mean, certainly, for better or for worse, most Indian applicants, most Indian students say, they want to be in consulting because, or when I say consulting, management consulting,
Right.
uh, because, there is certain, they're in, for whatever reason, Indian applicants are all about brands. And, when they say, they'd like to say that I work in McKinsey. They probably don't want to say that they worked in a Cummins engine company or a John Deere. They want to say they went to a McKinsey Bain or a BCG for whatever reason. I think that's maybe a cultural thing in India. The brand, and certainly a lot of students go into consulting. A lot of students go into investment banking. There are a number of people who go into technology companies as product managers. There are let's say Amazon or Apple or YouTube or Google or Facebook or whatever, or Microsoft. So and into pure general management roles in manufacturing companies, such as John Deere or Eaton, any of those. So it's just what you want to make of it, and nowadays there's a lot more people who are talking about I want to go back to India, even if I just come from India and I've had this MBA from Tuck. I want to go back to India and I want to just be in the entrepreneurial environment in India, or I want to go back to whatever it is that they were doing in the earlier, or a step up or whatever. And everything is fair game. I don't think there's anything that if they put their mind to it, I don't think anything is beyond reach.
Okay, that's a very important point actually, because there has been an influx of people towards India, back to India, with all the startup scene escalating.
Certainly, I think in some sense, it is it's a, I don't want to call it a follow the leader type of mentality. At some point, in the past, everybody jumped on the IT bandwagon, and everybody wanted to be in programming, right? Well, irrespective of whatever they studied in as engineer in their engineering. And now everybody wants to do something about e-commerce.
Yes.
And everybody wants to do something about developing a mobile app. So it's I would really urge not only from from an MBA application point of view, from really thinking about your own self and what you're going to be 10 years down the lane. Forget what you want to be 2 years out. There's a lot of introspection that needs to be done, and it's not simply what is the flavor of the day, that's what I want to do. It's about what is it that defines you, and what is it that you are passionate about, and what is it that you really want to be known for. Ultimately, that's what makes somebody really stand out, not only from an application perspective, but also in terms of their future career development. Because it's very, very true that you have to there's a lot of people who for better or for worse love what they do versus people who do what they love, and I would strongly encourage people to do the latter. Do what you love and don't go by what's the flavor of the day and ending, because there's an element of compromise involved in loving what you do
Yeah, right.
versus a lot of passion in doing what you love.
True, very true. Okay, so what reaction do you get from the Indian corporates when you say you're from Tuck?
I think people who matter know what TUC stands for. So I've really not had too many people, wonder. People at the top of the chain in the corporates certainly know all the top schools, and you know, and TUC is right up there. So there haven't been too many instances of people wondering. Of
Okay.
course, having said that, the man on the ground may not necessarily know about TUC, but that is work in progress, right? So the pagalway.com and the various events that are happening here going forward are all a step in the direction.
So actually, I would associate the word erudite with the Tuckies. So I hope the employers also feel like that.
The word erudite, you said?
Yes.
Well, erudite, and I would say more, erudite certainly, I guess, but more, uh, you know, not simply from an academic perspective, but also caring and good human beings who don't push their weight around and get things done, and are known for their equanimity, balance of mind, things of that nature. I don't think it's a school that is really, really very special, and I certainly felt it, and I live it on a daily basis, even now, having graduated in 2010. But I had probably two of the best years of my life at TUC while I was there.
Okay, that's great. Okay, I think so. We have covered about entrepreneurial opportunities at Tuck of people starting. You've talked at length about how people can pursue their own paths. So anything you would?
Certainly, I mean, entrepreneurship is there's big push always, and there are companies that come out of TUC that are well regarded, and they don't have to be, when people think startups, again, like going back, people think it's e-commerce, people think it's a mobile app. One of my very good friends started a company that is a board game, and it's a very successful board game. So what is it that you're excited about? Is it something that is really different and unique, and the school puts helps bring resources together to make that happen. And the student who was developing the board game used the first year project as the opportunity to test that idea along with her team members. And then literally the school was, all the students were were playing the game in their free time to kind of understand, give suggestions, and so on. So it's the whole school basically came together to make that the entrepreneurial idea a success. And certainly the school has a business incubator that helps with these ideas come to fruition. And there's a lot of there are venture capital and evaluate ideas and give suggestions to students on a on behalf of the Center for Private Equity and Entrepreneurship. So there's any number of resources that the school can bring to bear for the for somebody who has entrepreneurial ideas.
Okay, sounds good. I think this is also something we have covered about uncommon career paths. So maybe we can just skip this. Or
Yeah, I mean, I think suffice it to say that common or uncommon, it is how committed you are to making that happen, and sooner or later things will happen. You just have to stay true to your passion, and things will happen.
right, and I think Sudarshan, you are an example of that.
Oh, I don't know about that, but yeah, certainly, having never worked in India, it was something that I wanted to do, to be in the emerging markets, and you know ultimately I'm here, and you know doing something that I love doing in the emerging market setting. So certainly possible.
Yeah, that's great. So I think that brings us to an end of our discussion. And thank you so much for your time, Sudarshan. I'm sure our applicants are going to benefit a lot from this session.
Well, my pleasure, and certainly if somebody is to get more questions answered, or just want to chat about things that are on top of their mind, you know, I'm you have my contact information, so you can have them uh, write to me giving you a reference, and I'll be happy to answer their questions or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds very good. I'll do
And
that for sure.
certainly have them follow pagalgay.com, because it's a little different. It gives a very wide perspective of Tuck. You know, from an alumni perspective, from a faculty perspective, from a student perspective, from a staff perspective. So it kind of uh, brings it all together in some sense. So that could be a useful resource as well.
Yes, definitely. So thank you so much, Sudarshan, once again, and bye bye.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.